I explored 31 floors below the Svalbard seed vault, and I'm not okay. The email arrived at 3:17 a.m., the glow of my monitor cutting through the thick darkness of my Berlin apartment. Astrid. It had been years. Elias, it read, the subject line simply, Svalbard, I need your help. Urgently. My first thought was a virus, a compromised account. Astrid Larsen, renowned botanist, head of some department at the Global Seed Vault. Why would she need my help? I was a geologist, yes, once a promising one, but that was before the Armitage expedition, before everything went wrong. I poured myself a coffee, the bitterness doing little to cut through the exhaustion that had become my constant companion. I checked the headers. Legitimate. A chill snaked down my spine. The body of the email was terse, almost frantic. She discovered something, she wrote, something far below the seed vault. A geological anomaly, she called it. Something that wasn't supposed to be there. Something disturbing her. I can't explain it in an email. Come to Longyearbyen, please. The Armitage expedition had taught me a valuable lesson. Some doors are best left unopened. But Astrid, she'd been more than a mentor. She'd been a friend, a surrogate mother after my parents died. And the desperation in her message, it was a hook I couldn't ignore. 3 days later, I was breathing in the frigid Arctic air, the skeletal silhouette of the seed vault rising from the snow-covered landscape like a concrete tomb. Longyearbyen was a bleak outpost, a scattering of brightly colored buildings huddled against the unforgiving wilderness. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the howl of the wind. Bjorn Ulfsson, the head of security, met me at the airport. He was a mountain of a man, his face weathered and lined, his eyes the color of glacial ice. He spoke little, his movements economical and deliberate. He regarded me with suspicion, a silent judgment I felt crawling under my skin. Dr. Larsen is expecting you, he grunted, leading me to a waiting snowmobile. The ride to the seed vault was a blur of white, the landscape a monotonous expanse of snow and rock. The vault itself was a marvel of engineering, a fortress built to withstand any catastrophe. Inside, the air was sterile and cold, the hum of machinery a constant thrum. Astrid was waiting for me in her office, her face etched with worry, her usually bright eyes clouded with fear. She looked older, thinner. The years had not been kind. Elias, she said, her voice raspy, thank you for coming. Astrid, what's going on? I asked, cutting to the chase. Bjorn said you found something. She gestured to a series of geological surveys displayed on a large monitor. Deep penetrating radar, she explained, originally used to assess the permafrost conditions before construction. But recently, we've noticed anomalies, structures far deeper than the vault's foundation. 31 floors below, to be precise. 31 floors, that was impossible. The seed vault was built on bedrock, not some subterranean labyrinth. What kind of structures? I asked, my skepticism rising. I don't know, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. That's why I need you. The scans are inconclusive, but they're definitely there. And I've been having dreams, Elias, hearing things. Hearing what? Voices, she said, her eyes darting around the room. Singing from the earth. I frowned. Sleep deprivation, stress, it could explain a lot. But Astrid was a scientist, a rationalist. She wouldn't be swayed by mere hallucinations. There's more, she continued, leaning closer. The plants, they're reacting. Germination rates are spiking. Mutations are appearing. It's like they're excited. Or terrified. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to make sense of it all. Astrid, this sounds far-fetched. I know, she said, her voice rising in pitch. But I've seen it, Elias. I felt it. Something's down there, something ancient, and I think we've awakened it. Liv Erickson, a young intern, joined us then. She was bright-eyed and enthusiastic, a stark contrast to Astrid's gaunt appearance and my own weary resignation. Astrid had assigned her to assist us, a fact that Bjorn clearly disapproved of. He saw her as a liability, a sentiment I secretly shared. Dr. Larsen, Liv said, her voice cheerful. The equipment's ready. The elevator's been inspected. Elevator? I asked. What elevator? Astrid led me to a nondescript door tucked away in a storage room. Behind it was a narrow shaft descending into darkness. It's an old mining elevator, she explained. Used during the initial construction. We repurposed it. Bjorn stood guard, his face grim. I do not like this, he said, his voice low and rumbling. This place, it is not meant to be disturbed. We have to do this, Bjorn, Astrid said, her voice firm. The future of the world may depend on it. He sighed, a sound like the wind whistling through a mountain pass. Very well, but I am coming with you. The elevator was cramped and claustrophobic, the air thick with the smell of oil and rust. As we descended, the temperature dropped noticeably. The hum of the machinery grew louder, vibrating through the metal floor. The first few levels were unremarkable maintenance tunnels, storage rooms filled with obsolete equipment. But as we went deeper, the atmosphere changed. The walls became damp, slick with condensation. Strange mineral formations began to appear, glistening in the dim light of our headlamps. On level 10, the elevator lurched to a halt. Power fluctuation, Liv announced, her voice tight. I'll reset the breaker. While she worked, I examined the walls. The rock was different down here, darker, denser. I noticed strange symbols etched into the surface, unlike anything I'd ever seen. They looked ancient, almost organic. "We're good to go," Liv announced, and the elevator resumed its descent. As we went deeper, the unsettling sounds began. A faint, rhythmic humming like a chorus of voices singing in unison. It was subtle at first, barely audible above the hum of the machinery. But it grew steadily louder, resonating in my bones. Astrid seemed to be growing more agitated. She kept muttering to herself, her eyes unfocused. "They're calling to me," she whispered. "They want to show me something." Bjorn's hand never left the axe at his side. He stared into the darkness, his face grim. "This is madness," he muttered. "We should turn back." On level 20, the elevator shuddered violently, throwing us against the walls. The lights flickered and died, plunging us into complete darkness. "What was that?" Liv cried, her voice panicked. "Just a minor tremor," I said, trying to sound reassuring, though my own heart was pounding in my chest. I activated my headlamp, the beam cutting through the darkness. "The cable," Bjorn said, his voice grim. "It is fraying." He was right. The steel cable that supported the elevator was visibly damaged, strands of metal snapping and unraveling. "We need to get out of here," I said, my voice urgent. "Now." But Astrid wouldn't budge. "No," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. "We're almost there. I can feel it." "Astrid, this is insane," I yelled. "We're going to get killed." She ignored me, her eyes fixed on the descending darkness. "Deeper," she whispered. "We have to go deeper." Reluctantly, I reset the elevator. As we descended, the humming grew louder, more insistent. It was no longer a distant chorus, but a palpable presence vibrating through the air. On level 25, we found it. A tunnel leading away from the elevator shaft, carved into the rock with unnatural precision. The walls were smooth and polished, radiating a faint, pulsating light. "What is this?" Liv whispered, her voice filled with awe and fear. "I don't know," I said, my mind reeling, "but I don't like it." Astrid stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with a strange, feverish intensity. "This is it," she said. "This is where they want us to go." Bjorn grabbed her arm, his grip like iron. "We are not going in there," he said, his voice low and menacing. Astrid wrenched herself free. "You can't stop me," she said. "I have to see it." And with that, she stepped into the tunnel and disappeared into the darkness. I cursed under my breath. We had no choice but to follow her. Tunnel sloped downward, the air growing warmer and more humid. The humming was almost deafening now, a constant droning throb that filled my head. After what felt like an eternity, we reached the end of the tunnel. It opened into a vast cavern, larger than any natural cave I had ever seen. The air was thick with a strange, sweet odor, like rotting flowers. The cavern was filled with bizarre geological formations, towering columns of rock that resembled petrified trees. The walls were covered in the same strange symbols we had seen in the elevator shaft, glowing with an eerie, phosphorescent light. And in the center of the cavern, bathed in the pulsating light, was Astrid. She stood before a massive, crystalline structure that seemed to pulse with energy. Her arms were outstretched, her eyes closed, her face transfixed with an almost religious ecstasy. "They're beautiful," she whispered. "They're singing to me." "Astrid, what are you doing?" I called out, my voice echoing through the cavern. She didn't respond. She just stood there listening to the voices. Bjorn stepped forward, his axe raised. "This has gone far enough," he said. "We must leave this place." But as he moved towards Astrid, the crystalline structure began to glow brighter. The humming intensified, rising to a deafening crescendo. And then the cavern began to shake. Rocks fell from the ceiling, the ground buckled beneath our feet. We scrambled for cover, trying to avoid the falling debris. "We have to get out of here," I yelled, grabbing Liv's arm. But Bjorn was frozen, his eyes fixed on Astrid. He saw something in her face, something that terrified him to his core. "She is one of them now," he whispered, his voice filled with dread. And then Astrid turned to face us. Her eyes were no longer her own. They were filled with an ancient alien intelligence. "You cannot escape," she said, her voice a low, guttural growl. "You are home now." The crystalline structure emitted a blinding flash of light, when I could see again. Bjorn was gone, swallowed by the earth. Liv screamed. I pulled her back deeper into the cavern, away from Astrid. We had to get back to the elevator. It was our only chance. The journey back was a nightmare. The tunnel was collapsing, the air thick with dust and smoke. The humming was inside my head now, a constant, maddening drone that threatened to drive me insane. We reached the elevator shaft just as the elevator cable snapped. The elevator plummeted into the darkness below, taking our last hope with it. "We're trapped," Liv sobbed, collapsing against the wall. "We're going to die down here." "Not if I can help it," I said, my voice grim. I had to think. There had to be another way out. I remembered the geological surveys Astrid had shown me. There had been other tunnels, other connections to the surface. They were faint, barely discernible, but they were there. "There's another way out," I said, grabbing Liv's hand. "But it's going to be dangerous." We spent hours searching for the other tunnel, navigating the collapsing caverns, dodging falling rocks. The humming was relentless, eroding my sanity with every passing moment. I started seeing things, hearing things, whispers in the darkness, shadows moving in the periphery of my vision. I wasn't sure if it was real or if I was simply losing my mind. Liv was weakening. She stumbled constantly, her face pale and drawn. I had to carry her for the last part of the journey. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we found it. A narrow fissure in the rock, barely wide enough to squeeze through. "This is it," I said, my voice hoarse. "This is our way out." I went first, wriggling through the fissure, pulling Liv behind me. The tunnel was tight and claustrophobic, the air thin and stale. We crawled for what seemed like miles, our bodies bruised and battered, our lungs burning. I could feel the pressure building in my head, the humming growing louder and louder. And then I saw it. A faint glimmer of light filtering through a crack in the rock. We were almost there. I pushed forward, forcing my way through the final obstruction, and then I was out. I gasped for air, filling my lungs with the frigid Arctic wind. The light was blinding, the silence deafening. I pulled Liv out behind me, collapsing onto the snow-covered ground. We lay there for a long time, gasping for breath, our bodies trembling with exhaustion. We were alive, but we were not safe. I looked back at the fissure we had crawled through. It was located in the middle of nowhere, miles from the seed vault, far from any sign of civilization. And above the fissure, etched into the rock, were the same strange symbols we had seen in the caverns below. The humming was still there, faint but persistent, resonating in my bones. I knew then that we had not escaped. We had simply brought it with us. Liv was staring at the fissure, her eyes wide with terror. "What was that place?" she whispered. "What did we see down there?" I didn't answer. I didn't know. All I knew was that something ancient and malevolent had been awakened beneath the seed vault, and that it was now loose in the world. We made our way back to Longyearbyen, our bodies numb with cold and exhaustion. I tried to explain what had happened to the authorities, but they dismissed it as a hallucination, a shared delusion brought on by stress and oxygen deprivation. They searched the seed vault, but found nothing. No sign of the elevator, no sign of the tunnels, no sign of Astrid or Bjorn. They declared us delusional, traumatized. They sent us home, but I knew the truth. I knew that the seed vault was not what it seemed, that it was not a sanctuary for the world's seeds, but a prison for something far more dangerous. And I knew that it was only a matter of time before it broke free. I am writing this now as a warning. Do not go near the seed vault. Do not disturb its secrets. For there are things buried beneath the earth that are best left undisturbed, and once they are awakened, there is no turning back. I can still hear the humming. It's getting louder. I'm not okay, and I don't think I ever will be.